Okay, perfect. We are live. Welcome, Ethan, to the workshop series of Avalanche and Particle Network hosted Decentralized Customer Apps Hackathon. Welcome everyone who's watching. We kicked off the hackathon on 10th of January, and it's a month-long hackathon brought to you by Covalent, Movement, Chainlink, and Paladin. Super excited to have Ethan with us over here, who's going to take you through the onboarding via smart accounts and social logins, throw some more light on that in the building journey. And we're very hopeful that this workshop would help you accelerate the speed of your builds and whatever you're building in the hackathon. Ethan, super excited to have you. Do you have any opening thoughts to throw light on the hackathon? Share some inspiring words with the hackers.
For sure. Yeah, we're really excited to be kind of co-hosting this hackathon. Really, it's one of our first really major hackathons or like significant ones that we've partaken. And this is mostly because we've had a lot of opportunities like these kind of come across our desk, but Avalanche is, of course, an ecosystem that shines to us particularly, especially when it comes to the strength of developers and kind of the quality of applications that typically are built. So when we had the opportunity to kind of collaborate on this hackathon in specific, we of course took it because it was, I don't know if there's a much better developer community than the Avalanche community. I've been interfacing with the Avalanche developer community for quite a while, even in my previous roles, and I'm always impressed at the quality of applications and how passionate the community is. So in that sense, we're pumped to see the applications that get built from this hackathon, and of course, kind of the cool consumer facing applications that might emerge. Of course, at Particle, our main goal is trying to facilitate the creation, the development of applications that can hopefully shift us into a more consumer facing landscape, things that are less sort of financialized, less engineering focused, and more geared towards, this idea of mass adoption. That's ultimately what we want to enable. So I hope that this hackathon will help bring a lot of those use cases to light and showcase the fact that we have the infrastructure to make this possible, from what we're building to all of the other sponsors on this hackathon. There's a lot of tools out there to build really high quality applications that can get you basically consumer ready in just a few lines of code. So we're actually going to be going over a good chunk of what that looks like on the onboarding side today. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Interesting. I have to say, I love your setup. I love the neon logo that you have in the background and the overall vibe of your workspace.
Thank you. Yeah, I got the Particle Network neon logo and lights everywhere, and it's kind of crazy.
Yes. To everyone watching, the hackathon brings you a prize of 100K dollars, with a grand prize of 75,000 USD for the top three builds. And then we also have sponsor tracks, which would have different requirements for you to be eligible to apply to those, and they have a different price pool of their own. So a very extensive opportunity for everyone. I will now hand it over to Ethan and let him walk you through what he has for you today.
Sure. Yeah. So what I will do is let me get my screen share going here. It's always kind of difficult with slideshows, but I will try to kick it off 1 second. I'll move this over to the other monitor and
Yeah,
see
but
if we can
meanwhile,
do it
if
like this.
anyone has any question during the course of the workshop, feel free to put it in the comments, YouTube, Binance, wherever you guys are watching, and we'll take it up towards the end of the workshop.
Perfect. Let's see.
Yeah.
Window. There we go. Let's see if this will pop up. All right. Is that showing up?
Yes, I can see it.
Sounds good. Well, then I will close out the window here, and hopefully it's still there. Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, basically the way that I'm going to format this is, I guess I can kind of go to the next slide here. The way that I'm going to format this kind of 30-minute-ish workshop is that it'll be in three main parts. The first is going to be this slideshow that I prepared, where I want to introduce Particle Network. We are across a lot of different EVM chains and even non-EVM chains, and it means that we haven't had a lot of time to dedicate a lot of engagement just to Avalanche. So we want to have the opportunity to tell you guys about what we're building, and hopefully you can learn a little bit about kind of our goals and the different components of our tech stack. So that will be the first part, about 5 or 10 minutes, and then the second and third part are actually going to be a live showcase. So I posted this video, maybe it was at this point 2 weeks ago or something like that, where it was using Particle Network with Avalanche in, I think it was 19 minutes. And basically in that video, what I did is I created 2 demo applications. The first was like onboarding users through social login with our product called Particle Auth Core. And the second was another application, which was onboarding users also through social logins, but also through like typical wallets through something called Particle Connect. So today I'll go through the architecture of what this looks like. I'll go through those demo applications that we made on that video 2 weeks ago for this hackathon and show you kind of what it looks like to work with Particle in those scenarios, specifically with our different SDKs. So that's what we're going to look at about 30 minutes. Hopefully by the end of this, the goal is that you'll have a better idea of number one, what Particle Network is, as well as how you can start using Particle Network, because as you might discover when you're building your application for this hackathon, one of the requirements is onboarding users to social logins with Particles. We want to make sure that you are kind of armed with the knowledge that you need to be able to do that effectively. And of course, we're always happy to help as well if you need it. But to do a quick intro on my end, my name is Ethan Francis. I also go by the alias Tabasco online. I do develop relations at Particle Network. I've been at Particle Network here for, I guess it's almost 6 months now. It's been a ton of fun. And previously I was at a company called Chainstack, which also did a bunch of stuff with Avalanche at that company. And I'm excited to kind of walk through everything today. So to kind of like move everything along here, what I want to do is if you've kind of read up on Particle Network so far, you might have seen this idea of wallet as a service. If you didn't hear it from Particle, you might have heard it from a few other sources. There's a number of popular services in the ecosystem right now that kind of coin the term wallet as a service, but the term itself isn't very descriptive. It's kind of hard to understand exactly what it is. So in our context, the way that we kind of describe wallet as a service is basically this idea of facilitating social logins, Google, email, phone number, Twitter, stuff like that. These social logins then lead to non-custodial, or sometimes, depending on the provider, semi-custodial accounts that you can then use within your application through an embedded wallet interface. So a user logs in with their social account. They are given this account that is secured by either something like MPC or SSS or something of that nature. And this account they can use, instead of using it through something like MetaMask, they can actually use it directly within the application. So this has a lot of implications in terms of how you format UX and how you get people into your application and starting to use it. Because the current process of onboarding through something like MetaMask, there's a lot of friction there. And it's been a known point of friction for a long time within the ecosystem, in that today, if you look at it from the perspective of a typical wallet like MetaMask, if you want to ask a brand new user to get in, you have to have them download a Chrome extension or a mobile app. They need to generate a seed phrase, and they need to write that down, usually physically on a piece of paper or something. And then they need to keep that safe and make sure they never expose that seed phrase. And now they have this Chrome extension that they can use on different apps. And it's definitely gotten better over the years, but I think it's still not ideal. And we can't ask, a billion users, even like a million, like brand new users, to go through that process and not expect significant friction and drop off in the rate of people that actually end up sticking with applications. So the alternative is a mechanism that everybody's already used to, which is OAuth, right? So logging in with accounts that you already have, which then generates an account on the application that you're using. I'm sure you use it every single day for stuff like YouTube and any other like flagship Web2 app. You can log in with your Google account or with many other social login mechanisms. So we're just taking that same idea and applying it now to Web3. But the added layer of complexity here is that the social login now needs to basically generate an account. And it can't be like a completely custodial account, because that removes a lot of like the ideas of Web3, and then you kind of get back to step one. So you need a key management mechanism that is usually shared between the user and some sort of server or some other mechanism. And that wallet needs to be accessible within the application so that users can use apps with their social login, and it feels all seamless and sort of cohesive within that single experience. So in this way, using wallet as a service, which enables all of this, we can create applications that feel much more Web2 adjacent than the current landscape that we have, which isn't very friendly to brand new Web2 users. So in the case of Particle Network, we basically have 2 core kind of components that fit into the authentication piece, which is either Particle Auth, which facilitates social logins directly, or Particle Connect, which is sort of our it's like our take on Rainbow kit, basically, for wallets outside of social logins. So you can use MetaMask and whatnot in that sense. We use something called MPC TSS to secure accounts, which is a whole conversation, but it's really interesting. And then we use account abstraction as well as generally the kind of interface for users once they've onboarded. So we generate an EOA with MPC TSS, and then we assign that to a smart account, which we then have the user use within the application. We'll get more in that in a moment. And then, of course, this is all kind of taken together with a bunch of different SDKs that we have. I think we now have over 32 SDKs across every major desktop and mobile platform, including game engines and whatnot. And this all comes together to create this idea of wallet as a service. So if that was a little bit hard to follow, this is a visual example of what it looks like. This is actually one of our partners, Apex Pro. And I like to use their application as an example because I think they've done a good job of implementing wallet as a service effectively where it feels cohesive within the application. For, of course, the Avalanche guys, if you've ever used 0-1, then you've probably used Particle in some sense. 0-1 uses us. I believe Campfire uses Particle as an option. So there's a lot of cool applications on Avalanche that already use Particle, which you can see this same kind of example within. But as you can see here, I just have this GIF running. The user is logging in with their social account. I believe this is Google. And then this creates a wallet that they're using within Apex. They can fund it. It's actually an account abstraction wallet, so it facilitates gasless transactions. And then they can manage that wallet through like a custom interface made for this application. So as you can see, logging in with the social login, then kind of opening up the menu here that Apex created. You can fund it, stuff like that, and then you're good to go. So this is a much more cohesive experience for most users than connecting MetaMask and setting up MetaMask and whatnot. Because in this case, in just 2 seconds, I connected with my Google account. It created a wallet for me on Apex, and then I can deposit and start trading immediately. So this is a pretty big next step for a lot of applications in terms of being accessible and friendly to this idea of kind of like mainstream consumers getting into Web3. So this is kind of how we identify the UX problem in Web3. We won't get into this a lot today because this can go like pretty deep in terms of the idea of how do we create like a UX that feels as Web2 adjacent as possible and feels accessible. But basically, we see the UX problem in Web3 as 2 distinct halves that both need to be solved independently. But the first needs to be solved before the second can. So this is the process of onboarding to the point of expression. So getting a user into Web3 and getting them to an interface where they can start expressing tasks and expressing transactions to execute on chain. This is like one thing that, like I mentioned, has been a point of friction for a long time, mostly through using wallets like MetaMask. And we're, of course, solving this with Smart Wallet as a Service, which is the intersection of MPC TSS, generating EOAs, and ERC-437 account abstraction. Now, the second problem is a little bit more obscure, and we won't get into that today, but it's the process of getting a user from the point of expression, so expressing what they want to do, and then having an outcome. Right now, this is pretty basic. You just express transactions that you want, but that is solved by intent-centric architecture, although that's a whole other conversation that maybe we can have another time. But for now, the idea here is that we're trying to solve the first like 50% of the kind of core UX problem in Web3, the foundation of it, which is that point of onboarding to the interface that you need to start interacting on chain. So now I've kind of gone through the idea of wallet as a service and briefly alluded to the intersection of account abstraction within that. So what I want to kind of show you is how we specifically fit into account abstraction with this idea of social logins and wallet as a service, because it is a major part of our tech stack. So basically, whenever you're using any wallet as a service provider, whether it's Particle or any other service out there, basically what's happening is when you're logging in with your social account, it's going through that key management mechanism that I mentioned a moment ago. So MPC TSS or SSS or something like that. And then it's generating an EOA, so an externally owned account, a traditional account structure on EVM that everybody uses for interaction today. Although these are limited, so these are very inflexible. You can't do a lot with them. And they just aren't really the best interface for, again, this idea of mass adoption, because you're highly limited in the type of applications that you can build and the UX that you can craft for them. Because, of course, with account abstraction, you can do things like gasless transactions, signless transactions, batch transactions, and so on, which provides a lot more flexibility to the developer in terms of how you format an application to make it feel user-friendly. So we recognize this, of course, and basically what we do is, rather than having a user leverage the EOA that we generate through MPC TSS, we actually take that and just use it as sort of like a middleman almost, and we assign a smart account implementation. So by Economy or Simple Account or CyberConnect or even Alchemy's Light account, we assign that to the EOA. So the EOA acts as the signer, and then we can natively leverage account abstraction through the interface of the smart account. So I add some small code snippets for kind of what this looks like typically within our SDKs. As you can see, it's pretty simple on facilitating social login with this connect function. Then I'm creating a smart account according to what type of smart account I want and so on. And then I'm calling methods on that smart account to do things like sending user operations and creating a session key for signing those transactions. And we can loop in the paymaster and whatnot into that. And we have all this natively deployed on Avalanche, of course. So that now within the same 2 clicks to log in with a social account, a user can now have a smart account as kind of the interface with the blockchain, which means that as a developer, you can do a lot in terms of how you craft that user experience. And you can create, ultimately, what we've seen a lot of people do is creating an application that is completely gasless. So all of the gas fees are sponsored. It's pop-upless. So they use session keys to remove signatures and use batch transactions for like increased gas efficiency and whatnot to create like what is almost like a complete abstraction of Web3, which is really cool because that is ultimately how we're going to onboard people, is abstracting away a lot of the kind of friction raw components of Web3 that we currently interact with on a day-to-day basis. So a big graphic. I won't go into each part of this here, but basically this is how our smart wall as a service actually works. We try to make it as modular as possible. That's why we call it our modular smart WAS, because when we were building this, a big part of what we wanted to do was not lock users into just our infrastructure, because we have our own paymaster, we have our own bundler, but we didn't want that to be like the only choice for users. So we wanted users to be able to choose paymasters from Biconomy, Pimlico, StackUp, as well as bundlers. Same thing with, you can use Alchemy bundlers and paymasters. And we want users to be able to choose any smart account implementation. So whether it's natively supported within our SDKs, so Biconomy, Alchemy, Simple Account, CyberConnect, or if it's something external. So if you even want to like create your own smart account implementation, assign that to the account that gets generated by social login, then you can do that too. So the whole idea here is giving you as much flexibility as possible to create the application that you want using account abstraction, whether that's your own custom smart account, even your own bundler or paymaster deployment, then it's all possible within our SDKs and our APIs. So pretty straightforward. That's just kind of how we've done it here. And if you want, you can kind of take a closer look at this graphic, but basically it's just outlining the dynamic between these different components and how they make up this idea of modular smart wall as a service. But of course, like I mentioned, we have a lot of our own account abstraction infrastructure. So if you're familiar with account abstraction, then generally like the main things that you'll look at are smart accounts and a bundler and a paymaster. So we're like big partners with people like Biconomy, Alchemy, which provide services like this. And of course, we have our own. So we have the Particle Omnichain Paymaster, and we have the Particle Bundler, which I believe we actually just passed 4 million user operations on, if I'm correct. So it's been pretty active and used quite a lot. And then, of course, smart accounts, like I said, we have our own kind of deployments that we use, as well as from various other providers. And for key management, we use MPC. So in this case, like the collection of all these different technologies, wallet as a service, key management, bundler and paymaster, and smart account make up modular smart wallet as a service to onboard users with their social login into smart accounts with complete flexibility on the side of the developer. So this is kind of the core idea here. And this is just another quick visualization of that, how we kind of format the modularity component of this, and that within the SDK, as you'll see, we want this to be kind of as open as possible. So you can use, external implementations like Alchemy, StackUp, Economy, EtherSpot, Pimlico for bundler, paymaster, and smart account. And then, of course, with our native implementation, which is what's like directly accessible within our SDK, we have the Particle Bundler, Paymaster, various different smart account implementations, as well as, of course, Particle as the signer. So this is a kind of alternative graphic just to show the stack of that account abstraction infrastructure and how we achieve modularity. So this can all be done in around 100 lines of code for like a brand new demo application. This demo that I'm showing you right now is actually like a pretty full-fledged, like feature-rich, like login with social login, and then execute a single user operation and a batch user operation and a bunch of other stuff. And it's all done in about 110 lines of code, I believe. So pretty cool, and it's very lightweight in that sense. It's easy to work with. It's quite straightforward. Like I mentioned, there's SDKs for general like React on web, or you can use Unity or even Unreal Engine, and even down to like Android and Flutter and React Native and stuff like that. So we try to make it as openly accessible as possible. So whether you're building a game or a typical like web app or even like a mobile application, then you can pretty much equally leverage our tech stack to implement this idea of modular smart wall as a service. So that's kind of the idea of particle network. That's the introduction of particle network, and that's what we're building at the moment. So what I'll do is kind of exit this. I'll go ahead and now show you what the code side looks like, and it'll take a little while here to walk through that. So let me open this up here. 1 second. There we go. All right, let's see if this will show up. There we go. Okay, so what I actually want to do here is I am on particle auth, so I'll go ahead and open these up. So these are two demos that we have that I put together for the video a little while back that was kind of covering the two like core mechanisms of like facilitating the social login that I mentioned earlier. The first is particle auth, which is our like flagship authentication SDK. This is what you can use to just like directly log in a user through their social account, generate a smart account, and have them start using it. And then we also have Particle Connect, which is a more like Rainbow Kit like Connect modal that allows you to both log in through social account as well as through standard wallets. So you can kind of have a unified interface here for both mechanisms and make it a little bit more kind of like generalized for your user base. So in this sense, I want to start with Particle Auth, which, like I mentioned, is the flagship direct social login mechanism. Within this demo, what I've done is I've kind of created 3 buttons. The first is sign up with Google. The second is sign up with X or Twitter. And the third is this button here, which opens up our like general social login modal where you can choose any of the mechanisms that we currently have. So email address, phone, Facebook, Google, Apple, Twitter, Discord, GitHub, Twitch, even LinkedIn and Microsoft. So you can use any of those and they all create an account that of course you can start using within your application. When I'll do those, I will sign up with my Google account and I'll select this account right here. And then this will open up my wallet right there. As you can see right now, I have a 0.5 AVAX. I have the particle wallet modal right here. This is the sort of embedded wallet mechanism that you can optionally show within your application. This kind of allows users a central place to basically control the smart account or the EOA that's generated by Particle. So this is like the kind of MetaMask interface, but for the wallet generated by social login. And you can either choose to include this, or if you want to have some level of equivalent functionality within your application, then of course you can emit this pretty easily. But this is my my smart account on Avalanche. As you can see, I can bridge, swap, you can do on-ramp and send, receive, and so on. I can see my NFTs, my activity, different tools. And then what I have here is I have 2 buttons. The first is to execute a user operation. The second is to execute a batch user operation. So the main difference is that a user operation is a single transaction, and a batch user operation is multiple transactions batched into one user operation. So we can start with the first one. This application is a little bit slow because I have it hosted on like a temporary server here, but as you can see in a moment, once I get the signature, whenever you basically request signatures within applications with Particle, it's all directly embedded into the app here. So we have like this pop-up, all handled by our SDK. You can go and click on confirm, and this will, of course, send through the transaction. And we'll see that pop up on the at the top right here in a moment once it goes through. But whether you are signing a message or signing a transaction or anything like of that nature, it's all directly embedded within your application so that, of course, it feels like a cohesive experience. And then the thing to note on top of this is that it's all customizable. So you can change the coloring and the font size and the font type and etc. So that you can make it very bespoke to your specific application and your design style. So that, again, it feels like a natural part of your application and not some sort of external tool. So as you can see here, we are on Snowtrace and it was successful. So pretty standard transaction there. We can do the same thing here with a batch user operation, which is again just multiple transactions kind of bundled into one user operation. So we can go and click on confirm, and then that will go through in a moment. We will track the transaction once it pops up. There we go. And as you can see, it's right there. So that is our batch transaction successful on Avalanche. So pretty simple. What I'll do now is kind of show you what this actually looks like programmatically. Of course, I have a more deep dive into this where I actually make this live, and I build both these applications like step by step, line by line, within the like leveraging Avalanche on Particle video. That's on my Twitter at TabascoWeb3. I think I posted that, like I mentioned, about 2 weeks ago now. But this is the application. This is how it works. What we're doing is we're basically configuring Particle auth within our index file. This is happening through our project ID, client key, and app ID, which is retrieved from the Particle dashboard. We're then defining a few different parameters regarding the wallet interface and account abstraction and so on. And then our main application here is built within app.tsx. So what we're doing is, number one, defining the smart account. So this is basically how we configure and, as a developer, decide what type of smart account a user uses once they log in through their social account. So in this case, we're using a simple account, which is just kind of the standard implementation originally made by the Ethereum Foundation. So a user will log in, they'll be onboarded to their simple account, and that's that defined by this right here. Of course, you can also use Biconomy or any other smart account that we support for Avalanche. I believe we also support Light account on Alchemy for Avalanche, so you can use that as well. And then we are creating a custom ethers provider using the smart account object. And then, of course, defining transactions as gasless so that every transaction I do will be sponsored through the paymaster that I funded a little while back. And then we're basically using this custom ethers provider to just send transactions as you would normally. So in the sense, that's not, I guess some of these I'm using smart account directly. So yeah, on these examples, I am generating a few different things, and I'm actually, let's see, what am I doing here? Yeah, I'm building an operation with token paymasters and whatnot, but this was a different example. But in the sense, you can either use smart account as the object, or you can use ethers. But as you can see here, I'm calling different methods on smart account to do things like retrieve fee quotes and build the user operation, send the user operation, and whatnot. And then what we're also doing here for the batch user operation is basically the same thing, just an array of transactions that we're pushing through the send transaction method on smart account. You can do the same method on the custom object for ethers. You can do a custom provider in the sense custom provider.send transaction, and it'll do basically the same thing. But in this case, we are using the smart account object that we defined up here to control the smart account, although you can use either or. And then what we're doing here is we're actually connecting the user through this connect function right here, which is derived from the use connect hook that we imported up here. Connect is pretty simple. We're basically just choosing a specific social login type. In this case, it's Google, Twitter, or like none, so just like a general modal. Then, of course, we're defining the chain as Avalanche. And then upon calling this connect function, the user will be prompted to choose their social account, and then, of course, log in, and everything else is handled on the back end for you. So pretty simple overall. And that's it. That's the entire application. Basically, we're just defining the smart account, fetching the user's balance and whatnot, defining the custom ethers provider object, facilitating social login, and then executing two types of transactions here through the smart account object. But again, you can do it pretty normally with ethers as well. So very standard, easy transaction structure. The big thing here is that if you're already using ethers or Web3.js or even VM, what you can do is basically just do this, right? So you can just set up the smart account here and facilitate social login through this. And in that sense, you can actually plug Particle already into an existing application flow that you already have with ethers. So if you already have calls to ethers that are doing things like sending transactions and sending messages and whatnot, then you can plug in smart account, plug in the SDK, and create this custom ethers object and just swap it out. And what you'll do is basically all those transactions and signatures and whatnot that you're originally prompting through something like MetaMask, in this case would be prompted through Particle. It'll be a pretty seamless swap in and out. So in that sense, you could, ideally have an integration in just a few minutes by purely throwing in the custom provider and plugging that into an existing application flow using ethers. So that's kind of the general idea there. And additionally, what I also want to do is show you the second demo, which is Particle Connect. So Particle Connect is an alternative to the first, but instead the idea here is that, with Particle Auth, what you have to do is basically manually provide users with options beyond social login, unless all you want to do is provide them with social login. But generally, you want that also, like MetaMask and Wallet Connect and whatnot, to be options within your application. So when you're using Particle Auth, you need to do that manually. Rather with Particle Connect, it's a little bit easier because here you have this kind of unified modal that facilitates both social login through these buttons here and connection with traditional, wallets like Wallet Connect and Omni, Argent, MetaMask. I believe even our newest one supports Core, if I'm correct. But this will do basically the same thing as Particle Auth, but just through a modal that is a little bit more accessible to everybody. So this would truly be plug and play, where you can take the Particle Auth modal or the Particle Connect modal, throw it into your application, create a custom ether provider object, and immediately you have full social login functionality and, of course, traditional wallet functionality in about 20 lines of code. So that's the idea with Particle Connect. Pretty powerful tool in that sense. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll go and connect with my Google account. I'll select this account right here. And there we go. So you can see basically the same application, execute user operation. This will do the same thing, same wallet interface on the bottom right here. The only difference is that, of course, this is done through Particle Connect and not Particle Auth. So I can go and click on confirm. And as you can see, it will go through all the same. And in this, you don't even need like a connect function because it's all handled by that initial connect wallet button that you would kind of bind to Particle Connect right there. So as you can see, the same idea here goes through pretty easily. For the actual code of this, it's actually a little bit shorter than the previous. And then all we're doing here is actually creating the smart account object like we did before, creating the custom provider, and then we're just basically using that custom provider to send these two transactions. The first uses the provider and the second uses the smart account object. And that's it. Other than that, we are just kind of leaving everything else up to Particle Connect, which we are defining here within Connect button. And we're configuring Particle Connect within the index file right here, where we can basically define what wallets we want. So what like a traditional Web3 wallets we want to be defined here. What smart account we want to use for both the traditional wallets and the Particle social login mechanisms, and of course the same like authentication keys and whatnot. And now what you do here is actually, if you log in with MetaMask or something of that nature, then what will happen is that this will actually facilitate the same smart account creation as social login does. And this is all dictated purely by smart account right here. So with this interface, truly what you could do is have a user sign in with either their social login or their traditional wallet, both of which will generate a smart account. And then you can use that smart account for interaction within your application with things like ACID transactions, SANDIS transactions, and so on. So pretty standard interface right there. This looks a lot like RainbowKit, and you can use it in the same way that you would RainbowKit to facilitate both that social login mechanism and the traditional wallet in the same way. So very simple. Again, really with all these SDKs, our goal is to try to make it as simple to integrate as possible, and of course, as sort of composable as possible. And in the sense, we want it to like be able to fit into your application, whether it's a brand new application that you're building around this, or if you've already built out an application, you want this to just fit into it and replace your current like connection mechanism. And that's definitely possible too, and it's quite easy in that sense. And of course, the big part about all this is that it's free. We don't charge anything for Particle Auth or Particle Connector or any of our other infrastructure, including our bundler and paymaster. It's totally free to use, so you can get started pretty easily just by using these different SDKs that we have right here, which is Particle -network/connect kit for Particle Connect, as well as Particle-network/auth core modal for Particle auth core. Now, I want to do quickly is actually open up GitHub here and give you guys kind of a quick look at a few demos that we have. Like I mentioned, we have these two kind of core demos for Particle Auth and Particle Connect on Avalanche. We have this one and this one. This will contain all of the code that I showed you right now that I use within the video. So as you can see, we have the same application set up right here. which is slightly different because this one I didn't edit. So as you can see, quite simple, and the same thing for Particle Connect. We have a lot of different kind of demos here, constructing manual user operations. We have stuff for inscriptions and economy, and kind of the list goes on. So of course you can go to my GitHub here and you can see those. And also for those watching, to kind of give you guys a little bit of alpha, if you want to learn about Particle, there's two main places that you can do it. You can start within docs.particle.network. This is our old docs. We're actually about to revamp these because they're a little bit outdated, and we want to do like a better structure with these. So the alpha here is that if you guys are watching right now, we're planning on launching brand new documentation in the next week or so. But if you want to start using our new documentation right now and giving it a try, then you can go to particlenetwork.readme.io, which is our like staging URL. It's not live just yet. We're going to do a different URL once it goes live, but this is our staging URL. If you want to go over here and start learning about Particle, we have everything here. We have everything about our tech stack. So everything that you could possibly know about the different things outside of Wall as a service that we have, as well as how you can get started building with Particle pretty easily. We have full quick start guides, as well as platform coverage guides, debug, different partner tutorials with ZetaChain, Alchemy, and so on. And then we have a lot of samples, so like interactive code tutorials to learn more about working with Particle, and of course a very large API and SDK reference to dive really deep into exactly how you can start using Particle within your own application. So we have everything that you could possibly need here. Let me get started, and it's pretty simple. So as you can see, we have kind of everything listed out right here, and then we are also releasing some new products, which will also be listed here as well. But if you want to start using this documentation before we release it, feel free. It's already complete. You can find it at particlenetwork.readme.io, and that is probably the best place to get started right now. Otherwise, of course, you can follow us at Particle Network on Twitter. That is Particle NTWRK. Or you can follow my Twitter at TabascoWeb3, where I post a lot of content. I usually post one video a week, sometimes diving into Avalanche, sometimes diving into other topics, where I kind of walk through exactly what we did today. But I build these applications line by line, diving into exactly how they work, why we're doing the things that we're doing, and how you can build it for yourself. So, of course, if you're building for this hackathon and you're implementing social logins through Particle Connect or Particle Auth Core, feel free to reach out to me. My Telegram is Tabasco Dev. I'd be happy to help you out with anything, or even check out your application. Love to see what you're building. And other than that, I think that is kind of about it for the main workshop today. I was really excited to do all this. I think for the hackathon, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, this is something that we think a lot about the developer activities that we want to do. And Avalanche specifically stood out a lot to us, and it has continued to stand out to us, especially as the hackathon has kicked off. We've seen the response from the community. I think in total there's about 230 hackers to sign up now. So we're really excited to see the applications that everybody builds. And of course, like I mentioned, reach out to me or anybody else from the Particle team as you're building. I'd be happy to give you any help, or of course, just kind of give you some feedback and chat from there. Other than that, I think that was mostly it from my end.
Thanks a lot, Ethan. Super comprehensive, super helpful. If anyone watching has any questions, feel free to reach out to Ethan on Telegram. And you have a lot of resources available on the hackathon page itself. There are a few submissions requirement which talk about relevance, the use of tech, originality, completion, documentation, and a lot of docs available for technical docs available for you as well. The judging criteria would be based on innovation, impact, technical complexity, design, usability, pitch. So feel free to sort of brainstorm hard on all of these points, how your build incorporates each of these. And then there are also sponsored tracks which you can look further into. Each one of them, like I said, has their own criterias um, for you to be eligible for that. But yeah, it's a huge playground for you to play around, build what you've been thinking about, maybe take the first step. And the team obviously is super helpful. Feel free to reach out to them in case you're stuck at any point. And yeah, I wish all the devs building over here all the best. Keep building, keep breaking. And with that, I'll wrap up the session. Thanks a lot, Ethan, for being with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you again for having me. It was a great session.
Thanks a lot. Take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye.